have to hold it. Hello, I am audible. So I am Ankur Gupta. Good evening everyone, and today I am going to give a talk on constructing data-less database. So as you know, database means data, but here we are going to talk about data-less database. Does anybody have any idea about what is data-less database? So here we have some average Joy who is trying to, he has this database and he is trying to hold this weight, but he is not able to hold. And here we have Mr. Code. This is our software code, and for same data, same weight, but there is no data inside. So he is able to do it. Now, what is a database management system? So most of you have already studied database. So database is a general purpose DBMS. What it does, it allows us to define, create and query, update and administration of the databases. So in database we don't just store the database. We first we need to define our structure of the data. Then what we do after that, we insert the data, which is the creation. Then we read the data using our query. Then suppose we have some existing data, we update the data using update commands, and then we have administration of databases to improve the performance and getting the reports and fine tuning the database. Now there are two kinds of databases. First is proprietary software, like Oracle, SAP, Microsoft Access. So if you want to use these databases, you need to buy it. Then we have free softwares. So here you have all the source code of the software available. So if you want to modify the existing database system, you can do that. So we have PostgreSQL, MySQL and SQLite. Now this is the database architecture. So most of us, and you also use, yeah? Any question? So if you have tried the database system, we just see the interface, we fire the query, but that's a very complex system. Here you have multiple modules: admission control, dispatch and scheduling, process manager, log manager. So this is the architecture of a database system. So at the core of this database system, we have this query optimizer, which defines which is the best database system. So if we say Oracle is best or IBM DB2 is best, that depends on its query optimizer. So what query optimizer does, when we fire a query, we give a query and it gives us the answer. Now it depends on the kind of algorithm used, how much time it takes. Some may take say 10 microsecond, other may take 1 millisecond, other may take 1 second. So it should be as fast as possible. Now testing for this query optimizer is very difficult, and when we come to big data system, do you know big data? So big data means you have large amount of data and you want to test your query optimizer on that data. So then it becomes difficult. So we are trying to solve that problem in this. So what query optimizer does, it attempts to determine the most efficient way to execute a given query considering the possible query plans. So what happens, suppose you have this query. Now when you fire this query, you get this kind of query execution plan. Now this is not the only way to execute the query. There can be multiple ways, like here if you see, you have here sort operator, here you have table scan operator, here you have hash join operator. So there are different kind of operator, and depending on the combination and the if you see in this query, we have these two predicates where this return amount is less than 130.75 and another return text is less than 7.52. So depending on how much is the selectivity, this is called the selectivity. So depending on these values, we may get this query may return 0 result, 1 result, or say 1 million result. So it may return any number of results depending on the these parameters. So based on the how many results we are going to get, this plan will be different for different kind of this selectivity values. So what query optimizer does when we give this query, so it tries to find out what will be the best possible plan for these parameters. Now there is a trade-off between, now suppose let's say optimizer has 1000 choice of plans and it has to find out the best plan. Now one thing is it tries to explore all the 1000 plans, and other thing is it tries to find out some kind of trade-off so that it don't spend too much time and quality of the execution time is also not compromised. So it has to pick good enough plan, performance comparable to the best. So it don't give you the exactly the best plan, but it tries to give you the plan which is comparable to the best and takes reasonable time, so that you don't end up spending say 1 hour for executing a query which takes only 1 millisecond. Now the role of query optimizer has become especially critical in recent times due to high degree of query complexity. If you go to data warehouse and data mining, their queries are very complex. If you see this query is very simple, but if you take a query which takes, let's say, this full screen, or let's say 10 times of this screen, then it becomes very complex to find the efficient plan. And that happens mainly in case of data warehousing and data mining application, where you need to generate report and find out lots of things. Now we come to design testing of these components. Now if suppose you want to do effective design and testing of these components, now what we need to do, we need to have the ability to evaluate different alternative scenario. Like I told you, depending on different kind of selectivity, you will get different kind of plans, and it will also depend on what kind of data you have. So do you know probability distributions? Suppose your data has some kind of probability distribution. Some data may have exponential distribution, some may have some kind of binomial distribution. There can be any kind of distribution. Depending on that kind of distribution, your plan will change. Not just the selectivity, your type of data, the kind of distribution of data. So what you need to do, you want to test your database system, so you need to test it on different kind of databases. So what we do, we generate the data and then profile module behavior over a range of parameters. We design a database like some kind of distribution, and then we give different selectivity in our query, and then we try to find the behavior. We analyze the behavior over different kind of selectivity parameters. Now what happens if your database size is say 1 MB or 100 MB, then this thing is not that difficult. But now what's happening nowadays, the size of data is increasing and the requirements of the customer is also increasing. Like in case of data warehouse application, depending on customer requirement, you may have you are day by day increasing the complexity of the query. So, and test benchmarks evolve in diversity and complexity to cope up with these demands. So for testing of these database systems, what we have some kind of benchmark databases. So we call them TPCH and TPCDS. So we use those databases to test the performance and other things for our database system. So depending on these increasing data and customer requirements, our benchmarks are also evolving. Now what's the limitation? Suppose you want to test a database system on different kind of databases. What you need to do? First you need to generate that data. If it's 100 MB, it will take few minutes. If it's few GB, let's say it will take 1 hour. If it's few TB, how much time it will take? Suppose you want to generate 1 terabyte database. Can anybody tell me? 1 day, 2 days, or say 10 hours. Now from terabyte you go to, let's say, petabyte. So you have 10 to 3 terabyte database. Now you want to do it, it may take even months. Now you can go beyond also. You can go to yottabyte, zettabyte. So there are so many big sizes. So what happens? Time and space required to create and maintain large data sets. First thing, it's difficult to generate that much of data. Even your life will pass, but that you will not be able to generate that data. Other thing is, one thing is time and another thing is space. If you suppose you want to store 1 yottabyte data, even full department, if you put 1 terabyte hard disk, it may be, the space may not be enough. What's the problem? Our data is the culprit, size of the data. Earlier database used to be small, but nowadays if you see Facebook, Google, they have huge amount of data. So our data is the main culprit in our testing of our database engine. So how can we overcome this problem of data? Now one thing is, can we do without data? So any idea how can we do this? Any guess? So yes, we can without data. So what we'll do, we will create a database. If you run your database software, Oracle or other thing, it can't tell you whether there is a database or not. It will think that there is a database, but there is no data. So to what extent? So we want to do our testing of our database engine without data, but there is some limit. We can't test everything. So what can we test? So there are different testing, different modules such as Query Optimizer, Schema Advisor and System Monitors. So these are the modules which usually don't depend on the data. What they do? See, our database engine has a metadata store. So what we have in our database engine, we have one thing is data and another thing is metadata. So what we do, instead of storing the data, what we do, we store the metadata. So using metadata, we are faking the system so that our database engine assumes that there is a database. Now this is our software, code metadata software. Now what we do, we have a vendor neutral interface. Now there is a user who wants to create a database. Let's say 1 yottabyte database, which is 10 to the power 24 bytes. Now what this user has, this user has different option. It can create the construct the metadata. You have empty database and it can directly just say I have this much of database. Another thing which it can do is metadata retention. Suppose you want to test your system on say 100 terabyte database. You have the database and you want to test your system on that. But as I told you, our engine does, those modules does not depend on the data. So why we need to keep our data? So what we do, we just retain the metadata and remove everything else. Then we have metadata porting and metadata scaling. So we will discuss these things in next slides. So what we do for all these things, we just write the information in metadata store. So this software is working on DB2 Oracle SQL Server, and we also have added PostgreSQL and HP's database, HP non-stop SQL Server. So it's operational on DB2 Oracle SQL Server, or recently this year it's done on non-stop SQL. And this software is written in Java and contains about 50,000 lines of code. So this is open source, so you can download it and play with this software. Now suppose you have a client and this is a say some IT company, and client is saying test the Query Optimizer for metadata corresponding to 1000 TB data scenario. So let's say this guy is Oracle and here you have say ICICI Bank. They come and they say in future we will have 100 terabyte of data. So please test your system on this 1000 terabyte data, so that we can be sure in future your system will not fail. Now Oracle company gives the task to some employee to create this much amount of data. Now employee is thinking how to do this thing because it's going to take too much of time. So now this guy is saying this thing is impossible, we can't test this system. Now we have Mr. Code who is saying I will directly create or edit metadata so that I can create that system. Now first thing is metadata construction. What here we do, we have empty database. First we create the relation because we need physical structure of the database, but there is no data and database engine will assume that because there is no data, it knows there is no data. But what we will do, code provides interface for ab initio creation of metadata, which means we create the metadata from starting, from scratch. So you have this code interface, this is your database, here we have data and metadata. So first what we do, we create the relation schema. Suppose you have employee, student or different kind of tables. So first we create those tables. Then what user does, it inputs the metadata values. Instead of data, it inputs the metadata. And what code interface does, it fills the catalog, all the metadata tables with these values given by the user. Now what kind of metadata statistics are available on a relation or a table? So there are three kind of statistics. One is relational tables. So suppose you have some employee relation or some student relation. So it will have metadata like row cardinality. So this value will tell how many rows are there in your system. So if I say there are 10 to the power 15 rows, so when query optimizer asks this information, your engine will return this, because of this metadata value, it will return that there are 10 to the power 15 rows, but there are 0 rows. Then we have row length, which tells like what will be the average size of the length of the row, like how many bytes are there in each row of the table, and how many disk blocks are being used by this relation. Then in a table we have different kind of columns. So we call them attributes. So in this we have column width, like how many bytes, average bytes each value of the column will take. Then number of distinct values. Suppose you have 10 to the power 15 values, but only 100 are distinct and others are repeated values. So here we tell about how many distinct values are there. So suppose your query asks how many distinct values are there in this column. So there is no data, but because of this value it will return this many values. Then we have value distribution histogram. So I told you about the probability distribution of the data. So how we store the distribution? So for that we create the histograms. So we store those histograms over those column values, and using these we try to find out how many values will be returned. Then third thing is index. Do you know index? Anybody knows what is index in database? Yes, no? Yeah. So suppose you want to access something very fast. So for that you have indexes. Here also we support, and at index level we can write the metadata. Other feature is we write this, we have manual histogram, manual metadata construction interface. Apart from this we have graphical histogram editing interface also. So what happens, so code provides you histogram editing interface to facilitate the modification of distribution statistics. If you want to update the histogram, so that will be time consuming process. So what you can do, instead of writing the values manually, you can just play with this graphical interface, and using mouse you can create a histogram. So this is the example histogram. So using your mouse you can say how many values are in, what is the size of each bucket. So this is a bucket, what is the size and what is the frequency in each bucket. Now we are saying that user can input metadata values. User can input any metadata values, or there are some specific values. So can user input arbitrary values? If user gives some wrong value, say it says cardinality is minus 100. Cardinality is minus 100 means wrong. It should be positive value. It can't be negative. So now the input metadata values must be legal. Legal means whatever value you input, that should be valid type and range. let's say you want to input the number of rows in a relation. So what should happen? It should be valid type. Valid type means it should be of integer type. It can't be float, double or string. And other thing is range. It should have proper range. Like if it's for cardinality, it should be greater than equal to 0 or greater than 0. So it can't be less than those values. Then other thing is consistent with other metadata values. So you have I had shown in last slide, you have different kind of metadata values. So these metadata values should be consistent with each other. It should not happen like if you input, let's say this value and this value, number of distinct value and row cardinality. Number of distinct values can't be greater than row cardinality. So you need to maintain the consistency also. So what we do, we have a verification approach for this. So in this, what we do, we create a directed acyclic constraint graph CG. So you have all the metadata values, entities, and you have the relationship between those. Based on that, we create a directed acyclic graph. In this graph, we represent the set of metadata entities and its structural constraint. Like I had shown you this thing, column cardinality. This is our metadata entity, and these are the structural constraints. Then E represents the consistency constraints. Consistency constraint between different kind of metadata values. After this, what we do, you already have studied this topological sort algorithm. So we run this topological sort algorithm on this directed acyclic graph. What it does, this algorithm gives us a linear ordering. Suppose CG our graph, so it gives us a linear ordering of that graph. So we know that complexity of this algorithm is order of V plus E. Using this complexity, we convert into we get a linear ordering, and then we force the user through the linear ordering to ensure that the constraints are met along the linear ordering. So in the order of this linear ordering, we test all the constraints and ask the user to input values in that order, so that if there is any kind of violation, we report to the user you have entered wrong value, so that whatever metadata we construct, it's consistent. Now this is an example constraint graph. So first we have relation level metadata. So we have overflow, F pages, N pages. So these are specific to database. Different database will have different kind of metadata values. These are not common. So maybe it's storing overflow. Oracle may not store this overflow value. Then we have column level metadata, and then we have index level metadata. Now these are the legality constraints or structural constraints as I had shown you earlier. Then we have these edges. So these edges represent the consistency constraints. Like if we see this index cardinality and cardinality. So index cardinality should be less than equal to cardinality of the relation. It can't be greater than. Now in case of DB2, some of the constraints were missing. According to the official documentation, they had not mentioned few constraints. So we represent those constraints by these dashed lines. So if you see number of nulls and column cardinality. So I know from this edge number of nulls should be less than equal to cardinality, and the cardinality of a column should be less than equal to cardinality of the relation. Now the sum of the column cardinality plus number of nulls, this should also be less than equal to this cardinality, but this constraint was missing in their documentation. So we added these, and these are represented by dashed lines, additional constraints, like here also. Then if you see these numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6, 7. So when we run the topological sort algorithm, we get this is the some example order. If you run the algorithm, you can get different order also. So depending on the graph, so this is one of the ordering. And what we do, when we define our constraint graph, this acyclic graph, we define it from higher level abstraction to the lower level abstraction. Like these edges, we could have given these edges in this direction also, reverse direction, but we do it from higher level. First we test for higher level and then go for lower level. Then these are the super nodes, quantile value distribution and frequency value distribution. So I told you we also store the histogram of each column. So these nodes have their own consistency constraints. So we have written these as super nodes, and we will expand here. So this is our quantile value. What DB2 does, it stores two kind of distribution. One is quantile and one is frequency. So in this, if you see, these are the values, high to key, low to key. So these were present earlier, high to key, low to key. So the dependency between from this to this to this is represented here in this. Now, pardon? Please speak loud. I am not able to hear you. Yeah. You don't know topological sorting. See, you have this graph. Fine. You will have a user interface. User input the values. Fine. So when user inputs the values, so we have all these values. We created this graph. This is a graph. You have these vertices and these edges. Fine. Now you run topological sort and you get a linear ordering in the software. No, it's just we are showing these boxes for understanding. So first what we do, these are the ordering, linear ordering. So first we test for cardinality. Once cardinality is done, we go for this, then we go for this, we go for this. We go in this order, linear order. So this is the ordering. Then we have drop mode. So suppose what we have only the data, not the metadata. Now what we do, we have this data and we have space overheads due to the data stored. Suppose you have 100 terabyte data stored and you want to test your system. Testing does not need the data, so why you need to keep the data? You just store the metadata of the data and discard the full database, full data. So what our Mr. Code will do, he will just remove the data and you will be left with metadata. So you will have no space overheads during the testing process. So let's say for 100 terabyte you have just 10 MB of metadata. So using 10 MB you can test the 100 terabyte system. Now you have porting mode. So suppose you want to test the system DB2 and Oracle on same database. Now what is it supports? It supports the transfer of metadata statistics from one engine to another. Suppose you have some 1 GB database or say 100 GB database and you want to test two database engines on same database. One thing is you store data in both databases and then do your testing. Another thing is you move only the metadata. So what we do, we have database engine 1, you have the metadata and this is your empty database. Then what you do, you read these values, catalogs, and then you write here. So from engine 1 you write to engine 2, so that you can test, you don't need to move the data, you can just move the metadata. Then we have scale mode. So suppose like I had given you example of ICICI Bank. Suppose ICICI Bank to test its system for, now suppose they have 100 terabyte database. Let's say after 10 years they have 100 petabyte database. Now they want to test same database on 100 petabyte data. So what we can do, so scaled versions of the database are commonly used in testing exercise for predicting the behavior of future. So what we can do, one thing is we have for this testing, I already told you that we have benchmark databases also. One thing is we generate different scales of those benchmark databases. Another thing what we can do, instead of generating different sizes of database, we can directly scale. You have say metadata corresponding to 1 GB and you using code you scale to 100 GB. So you are scaling, instead of scaling the data, you are scaling the metadata. If you scale data, it will take lot of time, but here it will take few minutes. So after scaling, data remains same, only metadata is scaled. So suppose if you have the data in your system, so it will not impact the data. Data will remain same, but your metadata will become different. And later you can even drop this data. Now code supports two scaling modes of metadata. Usually what you think, if I say scale, so what you do, you will scale the size of data. So what you will say, I have 100 rows, I will make that 500 rows. So I will do 5 times in each relation. So that's our space-based scaling. So we have these TPCH and TPCDS benchmark databases. So according to that we have done. So this is very simple. Then another thing is cost-based scaling. So this is a novel approach. So this was designed in our lab. So what it does, this cost-based scaling, it aims to scale the baseline metadata M. Suppose you have metadata of 1 GB database. Now you want to scale it such that optimizers estimated cost. So what optimizer does, you give a query. So query optimizer using the metadata, it tries to find out the cost. It estimates the cost because it's not executing the query. So it's only estimating. So optimizers estimated cost of executing query workload Q. What is query workload? Query workload means you fire a collection of query. Let's say you have 5 query. So you give, say, first query I run with 0.2 probability, second 0.1 with different probability, you run different query. So that's called query workload, collection of queries. On scaled version M alpha. So what you do, you have this metadata M and you scale it to M alpha. Now what should happen? This alpha is our scale factor. So what earlier in space-based scaling, we were increasing the size of each relation by alpha. What we do here, the cost of executing the query workload, we have collection of queries, we run those queries. Now the cost, instead of the size of database, the cost of executing the queries should increase by alpha. Let's say if earlier it was taking 100 seconds, you increase the size of database such that now it takes 500 seconds. So what initially we did, we try to produce the metadata so that cost of each individual query in queue. So we have multiple queries in our query workload. So first thing which you will try to increase the cost of each individual query by alpha. You have query workload and you are trying to do it for each query. But that's not, it may be feasible in some cases but not always. So what we do is, instead of doing it for each query, we have this cost of this O is original metadata, original database, and S is scale database. This is the cost of executing query QI on scale database, and this is on original database. So we take the factor. It tells us what is the scale factor which we got, and alpha is the scale factor which we want. So what we do, we try to minimize this value, which is the deviation from this alpha. So we try to minimize this value. So subject to this constraint that cost of executing query QI on sum, we have suppose 5 queries, so we take the sum of all cost and sum of all cost on original database and its alpha times of this. So this is our optimization problem. Did you have any lecture on optimization here? So this is one of the optimization problem. So if you take normal software development, if you have done in your college or in IT companies, there you just write the program. You write software for each for loop, if else, those things. Here you have a real world problem and you are trying to solve this optimization problem. So this, if you are thinking that this is a normal software, so this is academic software, not an industry software. So here we are trying to solve a problem, not just writing the software. So this is a complex mathematical relation between cost of the query plans and scaling factors, and it makes the problem hard. So you run, there are libraries, we use Swanshu library, you execute this, you solve this problem using that library, and it takes some time and then you get the answer. Now example scenario, suppose you have set up, you have TPCH 1 GB baseline database and TPCH 100 TB. You scaled it using code and both are metadata shells. Shell means something which is empty. You just have cover, you don't have anything inside. So you created 1 GB and 100 TB using code. and we did experiment just with 64 GB hard disk. So if you see 64 GB hard disk and we are doing 100 TB database. Now now how we did the experiment? We have something called plant diagram. So what we do in plant diagram, see, you have this query and you have this selectivity predicates. Colon varies means this value is varying. I had shown you this thing earlier also, less than. So this value is varying. So what plant diagram does, when you run this query, depending on these values you will have different values, different kind of query execution plans. So this is our plant diagram. So these are the axes. So you have see, here we have account balance and supply cost. So here this axis represents your account balance and this axis represents your supply cost. So now suppose there are 100 records, then it's showing from 0 to 100, means this is percent. Now suppose there are 10 to the power 15, so this is the 20%. If our selectivity is 20%, then 40%. This way we are increasing, and each color represents one plan. So I had shown you one query execution plan. So here we had 32 plans for 1 GB. Now when we move to 100 TB, the number of plans became 77. Now the optimizer decided about these plans, and if you see this area, at small interval you are changing the plans, which should not usually happen, because if you are saying this area, this yellow area, plan should be same. This is not going to be make much impact. So using this plan diagrams, we can find out what are the issues between different kind of databases, different sizes of database, so that without having database you can just analyze things. Now application, one we can use this for debugging legacy application. Then identifying hidden constraints in database engine code. So what happened in a commercial database engine, like you have Oracle DB2. So in one of the engines, what we did, we try to increase the database size. So for this, what we try to do, we try to increase the size of the database, and for this we try to increase the number of rows in the relation. So what happened, when the input data size exceeded 10 exabytes, after that this cardinality estimation module saturated. So what this cardinality estimation module does, when you fire the query, you execute the, instead of at the time estimation, it tries to find out what will be my cardinality which I will get. Based on that, it tries to optimize the query. So that's saturated and your database engine failed. And no mention of this threshold was found in the publicly available documentation. So in the documentation they had not mentioned this kind of constraint, but in their source code inside they had mentioned this thing, and because of it this database failed. Now suppose this thing happens in your real world, what will happen? Everything will crash. And this thing usually, because this 10 exabyte is a very big value, you can't do it in real time. So real world you can't do it. So we were able to find this issue using this. We found few more issues with cardinality estimation in another database also. Then we use it for doing comparative study of query optimizer on different size of databases. So you can create different kind of size of databases and then do the analysis like we did earlier. And currently if you think that it's just in ISC, many companies, HP is using it, then TCS is using it, and there are many others. Even SAP is asking us this software. So many companies are using for testing of query optimizer. Now I will just show you a small demo video how it works. So first of all you connect to the database. So once you connect, you get all the list of relations which are present in the database. So you choose the relation, and then there are different kind of modes. So we are showing only construct mode, so where we do the construction from scratch. Now this is your UI using which you create your whatever size of database you want to create. Now here we are doing it on line item. So first of all I give this negative value. So if you give some wrong value, it gives you information that value is wrong. So once you give correct value, only then this part will be enabled, otherwise all this will be disabled. Then these are the columns of that relation. So you choose the column which you want to do, create. Then for this we can also store this all the information in files. So instead of writing, I just store that information in files so that I don't need to put it. So we got all these values. Now using this show graph, we see the graph and we can update this. Using this slider, we can increase the decrease the frequency or increase the frequency of these buckets. So earlier it was kind of uniform distribution, and now we convert it kind of binomial distribution. So this is the approximation, not exact distribution. So you can decide what kind of shape you want to give and then experiment with your data. So if you do this kind of thing with actual data, you will end up spending years. So after doing this for each column, then we update. So this button is there. So after inputting the information for each column, we update. So what it does, it use so when we click on this update column, it using that topological sorting, linear ordering, it checks whether constraints are fine or not. So after this, once we have done for each attribute, then we click on construct. What construct does, it has all the validated data and it writes all the information in your database. So it's asking that since we had done only for one attribute, so it's asking, do you want to construct only for one attribute? And then it's done. So if you want to know more about this, you can go to this site. So you will find the paper also, a research paper on this software. So you can read about this. There is technical reports also, and you will find software also. Okay then, thank you.
So any questions?
Yeah.
Sir, two questions. First of all, we have simulated the data using metadata.
Yeah.
So how far is the simulation away from or near to the actual data?
I told you query optimizer, it don't use actual data. Suppose you run your query. So it tries to estimate which plan should be used for the query. It will not give you multiple results, like it will take one plan, run the query, give you the result, then take another plan. It tries to estimate instead of executing the query. And at the time of estimation, it can't use the data. It only uses the metadata. So that thing is same at the time of query compilation or say estimation. At execution time, this thing will not work because this is for estimation time, not for execution time.
Okay, just before you ask the question, I would ask people not to leave because they have to sign this sign in front of their names. So just be patient for five more minutes. Yeah, now you can ask.
Is there any other way except metadata visualization using metadata, or when would this technique fail? When would the technique of using metadata fail?
I told you it will not work at execution time. If you are actually running the query, or if you are testing some module which runs on actual data, then this will not work. For that, we are extending this solution for execution time testing also, where we are planning to generate data at execution time of the query. Instead of storing the data, when you fire the query, at the time it generates the data. So we are working on that solution right now. So this is only for estimation time, and for estimation, whatever thing uses this metadata, there it will work. Be it any kind of module, if it's using metadata, it should work. Any other question? Okay, thank you.